Hello, everybody. Merry Christmas. I did threaten we were going to do this, so I hope you can all hear me well. We've just been playing around with the camera settings and everything, so do let me know if the audio and everything is good with this. So I'm just going to keep an eye out on comments here. So what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be doing probably about half hour-ish live build, actually start building something new. As you may have seen, I've finished the Italeri Semovente off. So that's all done now. So blank slate, we are going to start something absolutely brand new. And what we are going to be building is, let me just go and cue this up. You can tell I've really prepared for this today. Here we go. What we are going to be building this afternoon is this, which is 1602 is the name of the company, or 16th of February, or 2 minutes past 4 o'clock, however you want to call them. It's the 5.5 centimeter flak VG2 Gerat 5.8, which essentially it was a flak gun that the Germans were developing towards the end of the Second World War, but it never quite got into production. So it's a bit of a kind of like a paper project thing, but it is an interesting model, as befits the interesting modeling company. And it all sounds good. We got everybody saying sounds good. Mike Reeves, hello. Dave Fleming, good afternoon. Ian Hartup, excellent. Right, okay, everything's working apparently, which is jolly good. So yeah, here it is. Company I've never heard of. They're brand new, and they formerly used to be doing a lot of resin bits and pieces, but now they've delved into injection molding. This kit does come courtesy of the Frome Model Centre, who you can find at www.fromemodelcentre.com or follow them on Facebook at Frome Model C. So we're very grateful for them for donating this kit for the show. So let's crack on, shall we? So if we just switch over to the workbench camera, and I will be reading the comments and everything and wishing I bought a smaller MacBook now. So, here we are. Goodness me. Here is the kit. Probably need to move the camera out a bit at some stage, but can't be bothered now. I'm also going to be trying a couple of new tools today as well. I've got a pair of Tamiya side cutters here. Now, these aren't quite the same as the Despy ones, but we'll give them a go, see how we get on with them. These are actually, let's get them out. See, these actually have two cutting blades rather than the Despys, which have like a blade and then like an edge. But we'll give them a go. I'm also going to be going back to using a good old-fashioned file for doing some cleanup on the edges of bits and pieces. So that should be fun. We got these tools, so we may as well use them. I'll just get this one out a second. And these come courtesy of the Hobby Company, who we're very grateful for their support. This all was part of the toolkit for what was going to be a series of live demos at model shows in 2020. Yeah, exactly. So we never quite got around to doing that because of how the situation around the world developed. But with a bit of luck, we will be back firing on all cylinders in 2021. It comes in a nice little case as well. The other thing I've got is my trusty Swan Mortons here. Can't go wrong with Swan Mortons. And this is just for cleanup and everything. So we've got some fresh blades here. And this is how you do this so that you don't end up slicing your fingers, which is what I did back in 1979 when I had the Airfix craft knife version of this. Especially with the scalpel blades, they are exceptionally sharp. There's a reason why they're sharp. They're used for cutting people up by surgeons, and that's why they'll do it to you at a moment's notice if you're not careful. So there we go. Got some nice fresh blades in now. So let's just have a quick look in the box. Oops, daisy. And you get a metal gun barrel, and you also get what appears to be the muzzle brake at the end in Photo Etch brass as well. So we'll pop them back in. essentially, this kit it's not complex. It's nicely detailed. It's very sharp, but it's not, kind of like pushing out the boat in terms of absolutely mammoth amounts of detail. So this might be a nice, quick build here. It's also quite large-ish. I mean, that's the base of the gun mount there. So it's going to be a substantial model when we're finished. Just other bits and pieces there. Some more parts for the base and what appears to be other bits of the gun mechanism. Then we have two identical sprues, which just give us shells and other details. So as you can see, Mr. Pollard would probably have this built quicker than it's taken me to actually do the introduction. And then we have a rather neatly done instruction sheet, which is very cleanly done. I think that's the word with this kit, is clean. Everything is very clean and neat. So honestly, doesn't look like, I know the picture's a bit washed out there. Sorry about that. I'm just going to see whether we can adjust the exposure for this at the moment. Dum-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-dum. So I'm just loading up the Logic. Oh dear, that is very, very washed out. Might have to do some, here we go, image settings. That's what we're looking for. Oops, Daisy, a bit too much. All right, hopefully that's a little bit better. Hey ho, we'll just have to muddle on, I'm afraid, folks. But yeah, it's not massively complex, but should make up into an interesting model. So less of the talky, let's get building. So we apparently start off with the base there. And I'm also going to remember to keep an eye on the comments as well, just so I can keep up to date with everybody. Audio perfect. 2 minutes past 4 sounds vaguely Iron Maiden. Yes, thank you, Dave. And yes, and serial killers, exactly. So let's, we're going to, at some stage, I will try and get this picture a bit better. Sorry about this tonight, folks. This is just a bit ad hoc at the moment, but let's chop some bits off and see what these Tamiya cutters are like. Oh, actually, they're rather neat. I've never used these before. And they are not quite Despy quality, but they do click through there rather nicely. I hope we're all having a splendid Christmas, or whatever passes as Christmas or holiday in your part of the world. I have been doing some modelling, as you can tell. I've been getting on with the Samavente, and now we're getting on with this. Hurrah! So what have we got? We've got A4 as well, which is this part here. I'll talk a bit more about the Samavente whilst I'm doing these boring bits here. And I enjoyed the project by and large, but it was just incredibly frustrating the number of times you would... to be honest with you, I don't think this file is really cut out for plastic, if you'll pardon the pun, because it appears to be more like a metal file. Just get rid of that there a second. Oh, it does do a job. It's very fine though. Yeah, the Samavente, best way of describing it, it's kind of like a football team that is very stylish and can play impressive football sometimes, but is also prone to letting in silly goals. And I'm not looking at you, Liverpool FC, but yeah, exactly. And it was just so many occasions on that kit where it aspired to excellence, and yet there were annoying little kind of like things and gaffes, and it I wouldn't say it saps the enthusiasm out of the project, but you think to yourself, but for a little bit more attention, this could be a really, really nice, excellent kit. As it is, it just aspires to being good enough, and I think Italeri are better than that, frankly. And it makes into a nice model, but there were so many things on that where there were just like silly little things, and that's what it boils down to. Like, for example, right at the end, the fact that the shells don't fit the little box that you're supposed to put. You're supposed to put them in. Did anybody check that? It's just, silly, really, really silly. Anyway, we're also using Tamiya's extra thin quick setting here, which is my cement of choice, because I just love the way you can brush it into seams and it just flashes off almost instantly. Yeah, Italeri Summer Vente. So, as I say, in my assessment, that if I hadn't known that was a new toolkit, I would have sworn that was a 1970s release, which, okay, why am I doing that? Which is, not damning with faint praise, because Italeri's 1970s armor kits were state of the art for the time. You would hope they would want to aspire to venture beyond that, I think is the best way of putting it. And I mean, the figures in that kit are not very good at all. And the tracks, very just soft and flashy and loose. You end up with a lot of sag on it. They're things that you just don't kind of expect these days. And I'm also slightly perplexed as to why they chose 4 relatively complex camouflage patterns without having the option of a simple kind of overall sand. I don't get that. I just realised I've been applying glue to what I thought was the seam, which is actually the mold part line. And let's get a professional in to do this. So, yeah, I mean, an enjoyable project, but just frustrated by a kind of a lack of attention to detail, I think is the best way of putting it. And as I said in the commentary, you don't want to be kind of overly critical of you take no joy from being overly critical of a new toolkit, but you have to be honest. And the honest assessment is that it's good enough, but it could have been, perhaps even should have been, a lot better. So we'll just hope, that Italeri strive to improve, really. I've got a strong affection for the brand. But, coming hot on the heels after building some Tamiya stuff, and especially that Zvezda Sherman, yeah, could have been, and perhaps should have been a lot better. So here we go. We've got this now. We've got to determine what mode are we having it in, traveling mode or firing mode. Well, I think seeing as this will form the basis of a diorama of one sat in a warehouse being examined by an Allied soldier, I think we're going to have this in firing mode. So Dave says, check what mode you have, Ant. Want. I don't know what Dave wants. Ian has, I was sat those files, I find they clog up very quickly. Yeah, we're going to give them a go today just to see how we get on with them. So let's have a look. Apparently we need some D19, but I don't really want to. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to let this set for probably about 5-10 minutes, because what we've got here, I don't know if you can see, is, let's turn it to the camera. We've got a mold part line there, which we need to get rid of, but I'm going to wait until this has firmed up a bit. Then I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm probably going to use a ordinary plastic modeling sponge file for that, really. I get the feeling this is probably better suited for dealing with metal parts and photo etch parts and things. So we'll put it aside for now. I've had this in the toolbox for a while and wanted to give it a go, but I don't think that's quite for the task we've got in mind here. So we are going to dig out our old favourites. That'll do the job. Mike Reeves says, am I the only one who finds that the quick setting Tamiya glue to flash off too quickly? Probably not, Mike, but I think that is its purpose. It is for those jobs where you do need it to be really kind of, very, very quick. I think we've gone through this before, but it's worth doing it again. Tamiya do 3 types of cement. They do the white thick stuff, which Spencer Pollard eulogizes about, which gives you a lot of drying time. Then there's the extra thin, which is good for kind of like, smaller details, and it flashes off quick. Then you have the extra thin quick setting, and that does, Mike, it does flash off very, very quickly. But I don't think you're doing anything wrong there. I think, to be honest with you, that is its purpose. So let's have a look. Let's get some D23 bits done here, shall we? Oh, here we go. What have we got there? D23, D22. I should have the focus locked off on this, so you shouldn't be getting focusing problems. Like I say, this is very much an experiment today to kind of get this concept off the ground. So D23 and D23. Gotta say, these Tamiya nippers are quite nice. They're almost display quality. And I say almost because there is still a little bit of a sprue tag to get rid of, and that one actually does impinge onto the mating surface, so we just need to nick that off a bit. Mike says, understand that, but usually already dry on the applicator by the time I get it to the part. In which case, Mike, you probably need to be using one of the other glues, because it really is a case of you load up the brush and then just kind of drop it into place. I've seen people trying to use it by brushing it onto mating surfaces, and that's not really what it's kind of designed for. But I'll show you how I use it. That fit there is a little bit woolly, and I need to work out why. Feels like we've almost got something. Oops. Got something interfering with the mating surfaces somewhere. No, that's fine. However, we will. Yes, there is. I don't know if you can see that. See this. There is a big bit of plastic in there, which looks like it's part of the ejection process. And that is just ever so slightly interfering with the fit. So I'll carefully gouge this out without slicing my thumb to pieces. What did you do on Monday? Watched a bloke on the internet cut his thumb with a knife. Oh, him again. So what I'm also going to do is just sand these mating surfaces just to give them a bit more, level them off a bit, just to make sure we're getting rid of all the bibs and bobs. That's better. Okie dokie. So, well, first trick, Mike, is get the extra thin really close to the part you're doing. I'm just dobbing it in there just to let the capillary action do the job. And why do I get the funny feeling? I should have read the instructions, because do I need to trap a part in there or not? That is not entirely clear. No, it's okay. We can drop that in afterwards. I thought I'm reading the instructions thoroughly before building, is that? That's pretty much it. And that's flashed off really nice and quickly. Probably do with a little bit more on the end there. Nice. How many more have I got to do of those? 4 or 2? 2. No, 4. Okay. Yoav says you need to apply the extra thin using an artist ruling pen. That is interesting. And Robbie says, Tamiya Far does work when I photo etch. Thanks again for the Despy recommendation. Absolutely no problem whatsoever, Robbie. I mean, I've had here they are. I've had mine now for over 2 years. Probably lost a little bit on the cutting blade, but it's still infinitely better than trying to kind of like hack away with a knife. I mean, I watched, Martin Kovac, Night Shift modeler, absolutely brilliant guy, really, just one of the best modelers out there. But I watch him, he cuts his bits off the sprues with a pair of nail scissors, and I'm kind of sat there. It's like watching a horror film, It's just, Martin, get some Despy cutters, please. But he is brilliant, and in fact, I've got a couple of his videos to catch up on over the week coming up. So, looking forward to that. Of course, being Martin, he says that he doesn't really paint figures, so he apologizes for the completely awesome figure he then paints. Exactly. Don't you just hate some people? Oh, let's remember to get these things on camera. Yeah, this definitely does have one of that particular sprue attachment point does cut into does go into the plastic, the mating surface there. So you've got to make sure on both sides that you get rid of them. It's notable that when Tamiya do that, they always put a note on the instruction sheets to remind the modeler to remove the offending tag from the mating surface. And it's one of those things, okay, if a manufacturer doesn't tell you to do it, you still kind of go back to, hate to use the phrase, basic modeling techniques, which is test fit, check, adjust, and then apply the glue. And I do wonder these days whether, because we live in an era where the perception is that kits should fall together, and again, we're having a little bit of interference from this plastic in here, because there is a perception that kits do fall together. I do wonder whether sometimes a lot of the problems modelers come up against is because they are skipping that essential step and just going straight into gluing things together on the assumption that, well, plastic kits these days are just so super awesome, I shouldn't need to be doing this. Well, there's no substitute for going back to these kind of tried and trusted techniques, really. That's a bit better. Still not. Oh yeah, it will do. A little bit of pressure. That's fine. No, it's still something not quite right. It's not sitting perfectly there, and I need to know why. And is it that there? So, how have we all been doing some modelling over the Christmas period? I notice some of you have. That's better. I have an absolutely chocker dance card for the new year in terms of projects, which is why I need to get a wiggle on and get some of these started now. I mean, I'm going to get this built, and then straight after that, back in with the Tamiya brand new Panzer IV that arrived a few days before Christmas, which you saw on the show last Sunday. And I should be building that in Panzer Grey. There is an option in there for a camouflage one, but as I often say, that I do try to mix things up a bit, and try not to repeat the same subject matter or subject matter or camouflage schemes or anything. Try and keep things fresh all the time. So with the Panzer IV, will be building that one in the grey, which I've said previously, it's a bit of a bogey colour for me for some reason. I can understand, relatively speaking, olive drab schemes and how to paint and weather them. But for some reason, German grey, I don't get on with it. I think I've almost kind of got, settled that this year by building two kits. Whoops daisy, building two kits where I think I got a satisfactory finish, which was the little Tamiya Panzer 38T and the Italeri Opel Blitz radio truck. So hopefully I can go into building this Panzer IV with a little bit more confidence of doing these schemes. Michael Johnson says, working on the Hobby Boss A10. Ooh, very nice. I've never built an A10 kit, and shockingly, that is something I should rectify at some stage. Dave Fleming says, no modelling. His Mike Dell room, I think he means model room, is full of empty Amazon cardboard. Yeah, so is my lobby at the moment. I am going to buy myself a garden incinerator tomorrow and sit outside and have a nice hot drink and incinerate. I think it's the best way of putting it. Probably read a book as well. Douglas Hunter says, building on the Bandai 148 scale X-Wing. Yeah, nice. I've got a Revell quick build one to do at some stage, which was bought 4-5 years ago in a rush of enthusiasm from having seen The Force Awakens. That was back in the days, folks, when we all thought, new series of Star Wars films, this is going to be awesome. But I did go out and buy a number of Star Wars kits, built the Snowspeeder. I think I've got the X-Wing and a TIE Interceptor as well. But I've never built any of the Bandai Star Wars things. And in fact, another thing I have on the horizons for the new year is to sign up for Disney Plus so I can watch The Mandalorian, because everybody's banging on about how good it is. And yeah, apparently it's very good. So I will be Disneyfying myself in the new year. And I get the funny feeling I've actually not followed the instructions, and I've cut 2 bits off here which are the wrong sides. Read the instructions, man, for goodness sake. I did. I chopped these 2 bits off, but it should be one of them, one of them. Where's my Chris Ellis book gone? Let's have a look. Ian Hartett says, loads of modelling, start the new job on the 4th, so want the bench clear by then. Excellent. Well, having finished the Summer Vente, I did do the ritual thing here of purging the workbench by clearing it completely, giving the whole surface a blasting of spray bleach, just to clean the surface, get it kind of like sanitized, and then fresh blades into everything, as you saw live, and then we're good to go. Already done that bit. Why am I doing that bit again? So yeah, it tends to be a bit of a ritual of just starting, even halfway through projects. If I'm feeling a bit kind of tardy with them, I'll usually just clear the bench and clean it, and just make sure everything is, kind of nice and fresh again before I kind of dive back on. It's I don't know, it's a psychological thing. It just makes you feel as though you've actually, you're kind of approaching it from the best possible mental and logistical approach, I suppose. And again, let's fit the stage. Let's get the camera on here. The fit here is not brilliant, and I'm just trying to work out what is doing that. John Wilkes says, building an Airfix Harrier GR1, and also the Italeri 32nd scale Tornado. Oh. Do you know what? I haven't built any of the Airfix Harriers yet, the little 72nd scale Harriers, which is rather embarrassing. I rarely ever get the chance to build anything by the home team for one reason or another. So I really should rectify that. Although apparently I might be building the big 112 Bentley next year, because I nagged them about that. I've always wanted to build one, so with a bit of luck. But the Airfix Harrier GR1 and GR3 kits, the new tool ones, are very, very nice. I just wish the Sea Harriers had been tooled to the same standards, because those Sea Harriers are not particularly brilliant kits. But then they were very early Hornby projects, and I think the best way of saying is they were from another era, really, in terms of the approach to them. Whereas, it's kind of like phase 1, whereas the Harrier GR1 and the GR3 were very much kind of phase 2 era. So whatever interferes with the perfect alignment of these bits is, once you get a bit of solvent on it, it melts it, and then it seems to solve the problem. So of course, it wouldn't be me building something without actually losing something. And at the moment, there it is. I lost a part for a second there. Let's just play catch up on what everybody else is. Andy Brennan's building a 48 scale P40 Indigo, which is a freebie from my chums at Airfix. See, again, I haven't built any of the P40s. Which the 48 scale one is pretty much the best P40 on the market. Early P40. Should we call it a Tomahawk? Let's just call it a Tomahawk. You know what I mean? Those early P40s. pretty much the best one on the market. I mean, the hobby craft kits from a few years ago are a bit all over the place. The Trumpeter kits are as well. The Bronco kit is not brilliant. And Airfix did have the advantage of LiDAR scanning an aircraft. So shape-wise, it's about as spot on as you can get. Although, you know, as people point out, there are still detailed differences even between what appear to be kind of stock P40s. So, but it is a very, very nice kit. There we go. That's dropping in there. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a tedious job, this one, and I've just identified. There we go. We've got a little bit of a snag there. Yeah, it is a very, very nice kit. You should get around to building one. I really should get around to building one on top of the 101 other million things that I say I want to build this year. So, yeah, whatever. As I said just now, whatever causes this kind of like very minute interference with the way these two parts want to fit together, the moment you actually get some solvent on there, it just gets rid of it. So it could be just like it's like a really minor burring on the parts. I mean, yeah, microscopic, but I'll do. Comments. Let's have a look. Tom Hayward is finishing off Tamiya's Kawasaki N1K1 Shinden. Nice quick build before I start something bigger in the new year. Excellent. Tom also says, I built the Airfix GR9 this year. Panel lines were a bit clunky, but otherwise very nice. Robbie just finishing 48 scale Tamiya F16N dual Top Gun scheme. 24 scale Hurricane next. Indeed. That big Hurricane has come back with a bang. Yeah, Ian says they did manage to get the fin wrong on the GR3. Yeah, I think Matt, the designer, will never live that down because it was just one of those things that it was just a small detail that somehow just eluded everybody. So easily fixed, but I think, you know, yeah, these things happen. Right, let's get rid of this seam line, shall we? This mold line here, shall we? So what's the best way of doing that? Let's try going in there first of all with a coarse sanding stick. Well, I could suppose I could pare it away first of all with the Swan Morton, which is partly why we loaded this up with a fresh blade. Oh, nice bit of Asding action here. And that appears to be actually a molded feature, so we won't go heavy on that. While having my lunch today, I did have the huge pleasure, he said in inverted commas, of watching the classic John Wayne, Robert Ryan 1951 film, The Flying Leathernecks, which, how can I word this diplomatically? Not the best script in the world. Some interesting original footage in there, but let's just say it's a film from another era. Well, there is some very nice footage of US Marine Corps Corsairs in it towards the end of the film. Earth says, I am at the natural metal painting stage of a Models Vit Mirage 3B. Well, post pictures up on the timeline of that, Yoav. That would be very nice to see. In fact, everybody, post pictures up of what you're working on. Do you know, it's very rare these days that I actually kind of ads that having a work surface covered in plastic shavings like this is it takes you back to the old days. Oh, what a wonderful sound. Takes you back to the old days of frog instruction sheets that had diagrams that showed you how to do this. Oops, Daisy. No, he's broken a bit off. What a clot. Of course, it could be argued on the real thing. There might have actually been like a weld seam or a casting seam down there. I don't know. But to me, it just looks like a plastic molded seam, and I can't live with it, so we'll just get rid of it. So yeah, John Wayne, flying leathernecks. Yeah, okay. I mean, John Wayne does have two acting styles. It's kind of like nothing or, you know, up to 11. Doesn't do nuance very well. I think so. Probably the kindest thing I can say about John Wayne. And all the zeros in the film were just essentially the studio mock-up Hellcats just painted white. And in fact, it's quite funny because all the Hellcat, all the studio cockpit shots of the Hellcat are shot from the left side, and all the studio cockpit shots of the zeros were shot from the right side. So it clearly they had one prop and they just painted it different colors on each side. But that's annoying. Let's just get rid of that. And we get our good friend, our very good friend, Mr. Scotch-Brite. Which is absolutely indispensable when it comes to this, because it just cleans things up, polishes things out, and also the other end is a good old toothbrush. Once these have done their job cleaning the nashers, they get popped into a jar of disinfectant, washing up liquid disinfectant, given a good old clean, and then they're repurposed as a modeling tool. A little bit of flash there, if you can see that. To be honest with you, I've really not watched that much television over Christmas. I have done the same thing I've done, well, the same thing I've done for decades now, but it's kind of changed slightly over the last few years, and that is, religiously go out every year and buy the Christmas copy of the Radio Times. In recent years, it tends to sit on the television display stand, and that's as much interaction as I get with it, because I just do not watch that much live television these days. And if I do, it's not what we call appointment television. It is just, oh, there's something on, I'll sit here and watch it when I'm wrapping presents or something. I do not have the patience these days to actually sit down and watch television. I can't. I'd rather sit and read a book, frankly, to just sit and watch television. So make of that what you will. Right, we fixed that bit that I broke off rather spectacularly. But yeah, I haven't watched. Usually I do have rituals of watching DVDs at Christmas as I'm sat wrapping presents. That's about the only time I actually watch the television. I'm sat there wrapping people's Christmas presents. And usually I'll pop Jason and the Argonauts on, or Flash Gordon, or Star Trek: The Motion Picture. They're just films that always seem to kind of pop up on my radar around about this time of year. But this year I just haven't had the time to do it. It's been an odd Christmas, I think is the best way of phrasing it, but it's been an odd year full stop. So we're going to put that to good use by just coming into the workshop and getting on with some modelling. Right, let's just tidy that away for a second and play catch up with the comments. Ian says, I just can't sit up, can't sit in front of the TV. No, I know, look at me. Tim Cavalier. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name wrong there. Working on Tamiya M5A1, first armor kit for me. Well done, excellent. I know Mike Reeves dived into armor for the first time this year and did a very good job with his little Tamiya Stuart. So I'm very much of this thing of people getting out of their comfort zones and building things that they don't usually build. Dave says, I can bring these up on screen for goodness sake. Dave says, old toothbrush plus soapy water is great for removing sanding sludge from panel lines. It is indeed, Dave. Absolutely. Ian, that's first off my workbench. Once you get the room cleared, nice simple start build for the year. What's that? The McCord JP3, I think it is. Mike Reeves says, no Godzilla. Yeah, I usually watch King Kong versus Godzilla at Christmas as well, but it's not this year. Not this year. Right, let's see. Where can we go from here now? I do think we just need to pop these back into the box for safety. So this is the problem where you hit a slight hiatus with these projects whereby you suddenly can't do things because you need to do other things. And I'm trying to work out what the instructions are trying to tell me to do here. Okay, what needs to go on there? Right. Okay, I know what we're going to do next. What we're going to do next is before I go any further, what I have here is a moderately old bottle of Mr. Surfacer Grey, but I took the advantage of recycling the brushes, the applicator brushes that came with the Mr. Cement. So essentially what I now have is Mr. Surfacer ready to go from a bottle, which is good. So what I'm just going to do here is I'm just brushing some along onto those areas that I just cleaned up, simply so that I can check for any seams and gaps or bits that I haven't cleaned up properly. But it also just fills any microscopic scratches and things in the base, which we can just come back and deal with a little bit later. But what this means is I can apply Mr. Surfacer, and I'm not knackering an old brush in doing it, and I'm not having to use up my precious lacquer thinner in cleaning the brush afterwards. This just goes back into the jar and remains ready for use next time round. So it's a good way of using up your old Mr. Cement, or even some of the Tamiya ones actually. Well, that's interesting. There seems to be a lip around one side, but not around the other. Okay. I've noticed that there was no, on here, there was no molded kind of lip on this side, but there is a molded lip around here. And now I'm going to be updating, and I'm going to go back and watching the video and make sure I didn't inadvertently remove something I didn't, but I know I didn't. So I can let that settle for about, I don't know, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. Then I can just go back in there and, using a finer sponge, is just remove that Mr. Surfacer. But what it'll do is it just gives me an indication that everything is tidied up as much as I want it to be. And it's a trick that I do use on aircraft. I use, when I've glued two fuselage halves together, is I will then, before I even clean it up, I will brush Mr. Surfacer, probably the black, onto the seam, then leave it to dry overnight. Then when I come back and start sanding everything off, it kind of fills as I'm sanding, and it gives me an idea of how I'm actually eliminating the seam at the same time. So silly little trick, but it works. So, do you know what? I think that's about as much as we can do with this step at the moment, because it's all dependent on needing all this to be as good as possible before you start adding all these little details. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to jump ahead, and we're actually going to glue these bits together. So what are we looking at here? A12 and A5. A12, there's a kit coming of that in the new year, I do believe. A12 and A5. And I'm indebted to Mr. Tim Maunder, if he's watching. Hello, Tim, who very kindly for Christmas has pre-ordered me an ICM 32nd scale Tiger Moth kit. So thank you, Tim. That will form part of another, that will be built for the channel, by the way. So that will form yet another crowded schedule of things to build. But hey ho. Worked out the other night that this year I built something in the region of about 21 projects I started and completed this year, which is the most productive I have been for a very long time. Rather shockingly, it meant that I built more models than Drew this year, and Drew Manton. So yeah, figure that one out. So these two bits go together like so. And so I'm just dry fitting things here just to see how do things go together. Oops. There's a distinct lack of locating pins in this kit. Thankfully, the fit is thus far has been very good. But I think if you're used to building a model with you know, firm directions on how bits go together, this could be a little bit tricky. It's requiring a certain amount of lateral thinking at the moment. There are some little webs of flash popping up here and there that just need a little bit of... So again, I'm going to err on the side of caution and just give the mating surface a rub down. So there is nothing, there is a slight lip, but there is nothing to give you a firm lock apart from just down the end here. There's a little bit that sticks out. So we'll just err on the side of deburring everything and then check to see how that goes together. Oh, it's suddenly gone dark outside. So generally that goes together nicely, but it just feels a little bit woolly at the moment. And I'm not going to glue anything else together until I get a better idea of how other parts interact with this. So, okay, let's go to B13. You sunk my battleship. B13. I'll say the molding quality on this kit is nice, though. So it's not kind of dripping with detail, but what they have molded rather nicely. So that goes like that. That fits onto the top like so. Yep, so it locks in there. Right, okay, so these two parts do sit flush next to each other. But they are a little bit loose, I think is the best way of putting it. Like I say, with no location pins, it does leave everything kind of like floating around in midair. And let's have a look. There is something stopping this from closing up as neatly as it should do, and I get the funny feeling the culprit is here. I'm just going to nick a bit off the plastic there and then see whether that improves things or not. And it does. Yeah. There was that tiny little piece of plastic in there was just stopping everything from aligning as well as it could do. So, Okay, what we're going to do is let's get some solvent in there. Going back to television again, we're going to jumping around all over the place with these broadcasts, incidentally. But about the only thing I'm actually going to be watching live over the Christmas period will be Doctor Who, which they filmed bits of it last year up in Clifton, up in Bristol, with lots of Daleks on the suspension bridge. So spoilers, there's Daleks in this episode, but we all knew that anyway. And also, apparently, a former, spoiler alert, a former Doctor was also seen on set. So I'm not going to say which one or whether they actually are in it, but that'll be about it. That's about the only appointment television I'm watching this year. What was on last night? This remake of Black Narcissus, which is one of my favourite films, but they've done a television remake of it now. Yeah, okay. I'm sure it's very good, but I've got zero interest in watching it. Right, that's now that we've got some cement in there, that's rather nicely going together. Oh, I have noticed again, I don't know if you can see this. You can't see it because of the camera. There's a little bit of flash in there, just there, which we'll need to get rid of, but nothing terminal. And that sits on top there like so, and that goes together rather nicely. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this kit to somebody who is perhaps used to Tamiya models and things like that, because this is a little bit I can see how it would trip some people up simply because it has things that are almost straightforward, but they're not quite. It just requires a little bit of, like I say, lateral thinking and a little bit of modeling brain stuff. So apparently Crystal Palace are beating Leicester. Excellent. That somewhat makes up for yesterday's lackluster performance at Anfield. Oops. That sits in there quite nicely. So what we've got here is, I don't know if you can see that, we've got a hunking great big ejection pin mark there that we need to get rid of. Is that hidden by when it's actually on the kit? It probably is, but there is a general rule in modeling that you can see something and think, well, nobody's going to see that ultimately. I'm not going to bother with it. And then you glue it together, and lo and behold, yep, you can see it. Now we're not going to get rid of that completely for the simple reason that as it stands now, that isn't going to be seen. That is going to be tucked there out of the way, and you're not going to see that. So we're not going to worry about that, because when that sits on top of there like so, that's going to be right in there, and it is then partially hidden by a box anyway, so we're not going to worry. Let's get some glue on there. That's good. Bum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum. So that then sits on there like so. That locks in there. Yep. So it has a bit of a tendency to slide over to one side here, which, again, because there are no kind of firm locating pins, I can see that being a little bit problematical for somebody. If you look there, can you see that once that locks in there, that's good on this side, but oops, Daisy. That's good, but when you look at it there, you can see there's a little bit of overhang on the other side. So that might require a modicum of bracing at the end there just to push that plastic back out again. Although there is, I noticed there is a part C5 which sits on the end, so that might actually act as a brace to push things back out again. Oh, C5, come on, C5. Oh, there it is. C5. Ian says, what scale is this? It's 1/35th scale. And as I said on the Sunday show the other night, I can see this forming the basis of a simple little kind of diorama / vignette, very much in the style of Verlinden's Rathaus diorama with the classic Tamiya 88mm gun, where there's a US soldier just kind of surveying an abandoned 88mm, which Spencer Pollard actually referenced with one of his legacy build dioramas. I can see this forming the basis of something very, very similar, of an abandoned corner of a factory with one of the partially built prototypes sat in a dusty, litter-strewn corner with an Allied soldier having a look at it. Now, this is exceptionally, I'm just trying to get a positive. This is exceptionally woolly here. That really doesn't want to sit in there at all. You've got very, 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 very tiny kind of lips here of plastic, which are supposed to act as the locating parts for it, but they are not. That's not having any of that. They just keep slipping and sliding off here, and it's not. No, that's not very good. And I get the feeling the reason for that is that, let's just have a look here. Yeah, they've tried to be clever here. There's like a recess that runs all the way around the inside here. Then there's like a little solid piece here, and that corresponds roughly with this part, in as much as there is a continuous lip along here. Then there is a tiny little gap between these two parts here, which is supposed to correspond with that little raised part there. That's fine in theory, but the tolerances are so fine here that they just don't marry up at all. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to increase that. We're just going to chop a little bit of plastic away from the edges there, just to give ourselves a bit more play with the plastic. So which is a bit better, but it's still not perfect. And this is what I mean by good old-fashioned problem solving, which I think ultimately, for me at least, sometimes makes modelling a little bit more satisfying as a pastime, in as much as you identify a problem and you overcome it and you get to feel dead smart afterwards, relatively speaking. That's a bit better. Still not great though. That really doesn't want to. Yeah, that is an exceptionally weak part of the design of this kit. So we really are going to do a little bit of lateral thinking here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a bit of sprue, like so. And through trial and error, we're going to make like a brace there, if you can see, just to push the kit parts out a bit. And that's a bit better, but it's still not solving the problem. And I think the problem is that that also sticks out a bit too much. So we'll I can see what I'm going to end up doing here, and that's I'm just going to take that lip out completely. It's not doing the job it's designed to do. I can understand what they've tried to do there, but it's just not cutting it. That's much better though. That's giving us a bit more of a positive spacing there, but it's still not brilliant. I actually think we could cut another one of these, but actually make it a little bit wider. Oops. Like I say, this is a bit trial and error just to shave this part down so that we get a there you go, fly. I know you want to be part of the show, but oops. Oh, see, ended up taking a bit too much out there, but never mind. Right, executive decision time. And you can't see it, but like I say, there are some very, very faintly molded lips there that are, frankly, I think, causing the fit problem here. So we're just going to carefully shave them off. So I have to bring it closer to me so I can see what I'm doing. And suddenly that's better. I mean, it's going to require a little bit of gluing and super gluing and whatever just to completely cover it, but that's so much better than it was just now. And in fact, we'll also take the advantage to also do that as well. Yeah, it's not brilliant. Like I say, I think we might be coming up now against the not the shortcomings, but you know what I mean, the limitations of this kind of kit, really. Let's just pop a bit of perhaps it is supposed to overhang on that side a bit. I don't know. Oh. Oh, this is a bit fiddly. This is Airfix LCM3 in 1973 fiddly, this is. Right, let's anchor that bit there. And it does need to go forward a bit more. There we go. Oh. Oh. Right. Actually, this is more like Airfix 48 scale Buccaneer. This is. You have to anchor it in one point first of all, get a fixed point, and then work from there. Mike Reeves says, is that a gun that never went into production? Yes, it never went into production. It was actually built, and it was, you know, there were actually real things. This is a real object, you know, unlike a lot of these kind of like, you know, kind of like 1946 kind of kits that you can get out there, like walking land tanks and land cruisers and all that kind of stuff, and you know, World War II Russian ball tanks. This actually was built and existed, but it never went into production. So, as I say, to actually build it as part of a vignette with a Allied soldier kind of looking at it or taking notes or, you know, whatnot, is not outside the realms of reality. This is proving to be a little bit tricky, this part. But what we've got here is the benefits of the quick drying cement, because it goes in there and it does the job very, very quickly. And also now we've got a much neater alignment down this side. Oops, daisy. That'd have been Humbrol Britflicks. That would have been all over the workbench at the moment. So another fixed point we're going to deal with here is we're just going to anchor that bit in the end there and get that shored up there. And then we can go in and Actually, that's not part of that, but there we go. And then we can finally put some in that side. So yeah, that really was a little bit tricksy. Not the easiest thing I've built recently. What that should mean then is that just, again, it's the lip that is stopping it from really sitting on there properly. But we'll wait until this is really kind of like the solvent on this has flashed off and it's hardened off a bit more. Then I'm just going to go in there and take that lip off. There's probably going to be a little bit of ad hoc kind of filling and sanding with some Mr. Surfacer, but you know, that's part and parcel of the game plan with these kind of kits. So let's just get C2 in here now. C2. Is that it there? Yeah, very big tray. In terms of finish on this model, you do get some alternate color schemes, albeit hypothetical ones, some of which are in that German late war. Best way of describing it's a splinter camouflage, but it looks more like the late great Eddie Van Halen's one of his strats, because it's all in these kind of like strange kind of parallel lines and things. Not for me. I think mine is going to be just overall sand with perhaps some bits left in a primer color, as befits something, you know, at a factory. Primarily also, if you pardon the pun, also because I really, one color that I do like painting and weathering is kind of, you know, is sand yellow. I've got a bead on how to do that. So I'm always slightly disappointed when I have to build German tanks and they're actually in camouflage, because I actually prefer them when they're just like overall kind of dark yellow. Oh, there we go. You've got a great big ejection pin. Yeah, we've got an ejection pin mark there as well, or ejection pin. And I'm just trying to work out whether that can be seen or whether I'm going to need to deal with that, or whether we can pass that off as actually a feature of the real gun. Apparently, no, we'll get rid of it. So again, one of the benefits of these lovely Swan Morton curved blades is you can go in there, get rid of them, and then a couple of seconds work with sanding file. And that is as good as gone. Probably going to wrap this up in the next 5-10 minutes or so, because I need a cup of tea. And it'd be rude of me to just walk off and leave you to the distressing sounds of me making a cup of tea in the background. There we go. That's how we deal with that. But also the time is coming up to just gone 5 o'clock. Now, this is where actually we're going to use a bit of the Tamiya Whitecap. Ooh. Oops, daisy. So I'm just going to get some on the inner edge there, which is going to give me a bit of grab. And then, right, I can afford to be a little bit more generous with that. I can afford to be a lot more generous with that. There we go. That's good. That's pretty much kind of set almost immediately. But we are just going to go in there and give that a little bit of a bead of extra thin just to finish off the weld. So that's good. We're joined by Mr. P. Hello, Mr. P. Final score 1-1. Excellent. Good. Right. Well, that's happy for me. That's Leicester Crystal Palace. Good to see them losing points. Yes. Happy birthday, Spencer. Happy birthday, Spencer, indeed. He's reached the ripe old age of 53. Good age, he said. Says he at 53. I can't believe I'm 53. I still got the brain of an 18-year-old. Probably still got the maturity of an 18-year-old, but there you go. Mental maturity of an 18-year-old. But no, age is a funny old thing. And again, this is almost our interesting modeling company motto. If not now, when? I mean, yeah. If you're not going to build these models, then when are you going to build these models? That is so much better fit now. Getting rid of that lip is, that's infinitely better. I am going to use a bit of the white cap again, just to lob it on the end there. And then carefully align this into place like so. Just get all the edges lined up. That's upsdaisy. Oh no, that is supposed to overhang there. The key is there's actually, I don't know if you can see this here, but there is actually a continuous line here and a continuous line there. And I think if you get those lined up, everything around the edges here, I think possibly it is supposed to be kind of slightly uneven and off there, but it's these lines that you really need to make sure you are. And with that in place, relatively in place, then we will just let some extra thin in there. I'm just going to give that a bit of a squeeze just to make sure that's firmly in place. And anything that ekes out, it's a weld bead. Could be my new catchphrase next year. It's a weld bead. That will replace my trademarked cover it in mud. So we've got that there. I'm sorry, just having a look at the instructions here for a second. Okay, let's just get a little bit more done, and and then we'll call it. Well, how long have we been on? We've been for an hour and a half, for goodness sake, people. 90 minutes. I was only supposed to be like half an hour. Goodness me. Ian says, funny that the best people are all 53. Absolutely. But this is literally what this is. It is just me at the workbench and like a little bit of an overhead view as I build this thing. So, right, C14. There's quite a few bits. There's quite a lot going on here, folks. C14, B22, and B2. Okay. So B23 on there. Ping. B2. And what's the other one I'm looking for? B22. What have I got on the dance card? Well, this. Then I've got those other little Zvezda 72nd scale armor kits, the kind of quick build ones, of which I've got the elephant is semi-painted here at the moment. I need to kind of finish that one off. And then I've got, I think it's a T-34 SU-100. I always get those tank destroyers mixed up. And a Jagdpanther. So they will also form the basis of a pop-up build live program. I mean, this Flak 55, I'm hoping to get pretty much all the construction, if not completed tonight, then certainly over the next 2 days. So this really will be painted, weathered and finished before the weekend. It's going to be no mucking around on this one, folks. And I'm also conscious of the fact that when you are given things to do, you are gifted things to build, and this does come via the kind generosity of the Frome Model Centre, then you get on with them. You don't start them and then, kind of, I'm a bit bored, do my own thing. I think that's a professional courtesy that you see these projects through from start to finish. So now that, I get the feeling, should. Another little strange quirk of this model. That you've got a slot here, and we've got a thing there. I think those are supposed to slot together like so, and yet, no matter what I do, that just wants to ride up. Now, what's causing that? Is that because I think this is too wide? It's possibly a bit too wide. But the first thing we'll do is we'll reduce its height a bit more. And nope, that is definitely, I can't slide it into that slot there. So what that means is this is too wide. So I could go in there and just carve some of the underside of that off and carve it into like a V shape, and that might solve the problem. Yeah, build things to build in 2021. So I've got those little Zvezda things to do. I've also got an Italeri Stuka Soufflus, which is the old Eschi 72nd scale kit, which I've actually built that in about the mid-80s and didn't do as quite a good a job as I would have wanted. So to actually have the opportunity to build another one is still not having any of it. Right, okay. I'm going to carve that off completely. So to build another one, albeit 30 odd years later, is a good way of laying that ghost to rest. And it's an old Eschi kit. You know me, I like my old Eschi kits. Then I've got, as a me project, I've got that Dora Wings, one of their Percival Proctors to build. And if I like it, I might actually get one of their 48 scale ones. And again, I'm going to try and turn that around, is literally turn it into like a week project. A week-long project is just start it, bang, assemble it, paint it, weather it, decal it, done. And also catalogue the build process as well. See, look, now that we've got rid of that fits. But I think that could also just do with a little bit of sanding on there as well, just so we can That's better. That's much, much better. And then beyond that, what else have I got? I haven't got the Mercedes rally car anymore because Jen Wright's got that. And frankly, she's doing a better job of it than I ever would. So I am not going to lose any sleep over that. I mean, Jen is just one of the most ridiculously talented modelers out there. Don't tell her I said that. And, you know, I'm more than happy for the fact that she's getting on with it. And I was looking forward to building the little Tamiya Marder, but Mr. Pollard expressed an interest in that, and it lightens my load, so I mailed that to him just before Christmas. So that frees me up. And like I say, hopefully I've got this Bentley to build for Airfix, and I'm trying to keep the schedule open as well for any surprise things that I suddenly get a phone call, an email, or a text message to say, could you build one of these for us, please? Because some of the most fun projects I've had in the last couple of years have been things that haven't necessarily been models that I would have actually gone out and bought or even expressed an interest in building in the first place. Two of which that immediately spring to mind were the Italeri reissue of the I think it was Pocher, 1/9 scale Vespa. I would never build one of those in a month of Sundays, but I was asked to build one, and I thought, we'll do it. I've no idea what I'm doing, but we'll give it a go. Actually, turned out to be one of my favourite projects of 2019. And we're actually going to use a clamp on this because that does need to just sit together a bit better than it's doing at the moment. And similarly, towards the end of 2019, I was asked again, could you build one of these, please? And it was Italeri 24 scale, and it was the reissue of the old Eschi Land Rover, Fire Brigade Land Rover, which, I'll build one. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll build one. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I think this year, one of the projects I did was the little monkey bike by Tamiya. They won 12th scale. I don't know anything about motorbikes, but I thought, well, we'll give it a go. Let's build one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I just love building things that take me out of my comfort zone. And to a greater extent, I'd be quite happy to get rid of all the kits I have here and just build things that, literally turn up out of the blue, because it almost takes you back to your childhood of, not having kits, and then suddenly, your mum and dad come home and they say, oh, we bought this for you. And you're building something. I mean, got to bear in mind, when I was a kid, we didn't have any money. And so model kits were a luxury my family could not afford. So when I was able to have models, they felt like an extraordinary privilege. And to some extent, they probably still do these days. But yeah, to just go back to a kind of like a thing of building something because somebody has plonked it in front of you and said, build this, or, and I actually think there's a simple magical joy to that. It is like going back and building things when you're a kid. So, right, let's have a look. That goes... He's determined to be part of the broadcast tonight, this little fly. I suppose you could literally call this a fly on the wall documentary. Oops. Okay. I'm trying to work out, how does this work then? This sits in there like that, and okay, so it sits in there like that, and then just, that's it. There's nothing at the front to support it. Well, okay, that's what you're saying. Oh, and I've got to build an old Matchbox kit for somebody. I won't say who, because they might go, don't tell them you're doing that. And it's like, okay. But yeah, I've got a Matchbox kit to build in the new year. And of course, I'm rather excited by the fact that Revell have reissued some of the classic 76 scale Matchbox armor, including the Sherman Firefly, which I've wanted to build another one of those for ages. I actually did build a number of the Matchbox 76 scale armor kits starting off about 10 years ago, because I was going to Frome and picking them up there and building them, and kind of like having another go at building models that I built as a kid but didn't build particularly well. So I'm just aligning that a bit better. Perhaps it is a marker of, I wouldn't say how far my modeling has come in 10 years, because that sounds a bit pretentious, but I think it's a marker of how techniques and things have changed in the last 10 years or so, that the models that I built back in 2010, 2011, I want to have another go at building them again, because I build them in a completely different style now. So I think that's one of the fabulous things about this hobby, is that if you keep your eyes and ears open, there's always new techniques out there that you find yourself adopting, and it just reinvigorates your hobby for you, I feel, in a personal opinion. But as ever, Mock's first rule: your workbench, your rules. So you build what you want, how you want, when you want. I don't care what people are building, as long as they're building something. Now, I've got a bit of flash in there, so we'll just knock that off with a blade, and we've got a little bit there as well. So, oops, Daisy. Oh, it's gouged. Bit of a gouge there. Never mind. Never mind. This is in the corner of a factory. It's not in the best condition. So I think we're going to wrap this up in a second, because I desperately need a cup of tea. Yeah, I was talking about stuff I've got to build this year. I'm trying to think what else I've got shoved away in the corner there. Spencer and I have got our challenges to build. And we've got the Tamiya Walker Bulldog. We've got the HMS Rodney and HMS Nelson challenge to do in the new year. We're also going to do a kind of like not really a full-on challenge, but he's got a Tamiya Panther to build for his legacy build project. And we're talking about the original Tamiya Panther, the old kit. I've got a copy of that, and I thought it'd be fun for me to build one, because to me there is nothing more quintessentially Tamiya than a Panther kit. For me to build one, and we're going to do it at the same time, but it's not going to be a challenge per se, but I'm just going to take that kit. I'm not going to add any aftermarket or correct it. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm probably going to raid the spares box for jerry cans. I'll probably put some tarps on it, just really try to fool people that it's not the old Tamiya kit by being a bit inventive with it, but not throwing money at it. That's the thing. And if that's one of the things that I know Spencer and I have spoken about this time and time again, it's about keeping this hobby as accessible and as affordable as we can. I know Spencer's just built 130 quid, Italeri Tornado kit, but in terms of a lot of the things we are doing, we are just trying to keep everything within the realms of, affordable. Especially in this period at the moment where, people, perhaps money is tight anyway. So, we will be building things straight from the box. This is the thing about the challenges, is it is about building things pretty much straight from the box without throwing money at them. It's just being inventive. So anyway, that little ping is a reminder for me to actually bring tonight's broadcast to a close, really. So on that note, that was nearly 2 hours. 2 hours of tedium. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm going to carry on building this thing tonight anyway, and we might do another pickup on a pop-up live model show for this. So thank you to everybody for watching. I'll just play a catch up with some of the comments. Oh, that's very kind of Tim. So it's a good way to start my day. Thank you, Tim. That's very kind of you. So on that note, it just remains for me to say, wish you whatever passes for Christmas or a holiday in your part of the world. And certainly a happy new year, which is rapidly running towards us now. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, build some models, and we'll do another pop-up live at some stage in the next couple of days. So on that basis, see you later. Take care.